It's fascinating, and please do correct me if I say anything wrong or rush past anything that's really important. I'm sure I'll muddle words up here and there. Um, I guess the kind of way that I want to take this conversation now then is kind of the sort of idea of hard problem of consciousness, kind of how do we begin to explain these sorts of things. People like Philip Goff or Annika Harris or others have kind of said that science potentially isn't able to answer these sorts of questions. We need to turn to things like philosophy or even introspection to begin to try and understand what's going on within us. I know Josh Rasmussen has also written quite heavily in this space, some really interesting books there that I'll link in the description if anybody wants to go and explore that. But Professor Swinburne, my question to you is, are we kind of, by positing this hypothesis of a soul, I'm aware that we answer some fundamental questions and we give ourselves something to be able to take forwards as well into things like the problem of evil. But are we actually kind of almost shifting the hard problem of consciousness, into the hard problem of souls? Like, would it be possible for philosophers and scientists to test this hypothesis other than through arguments to the best explanation?
Well, I don't think they could test any scientific theory except by arguments to the best explanation. It's a great fallacy, which scientists adopt, that a scientific theory can only be rationally believed if when you've believed it, uh, there are certain predictions it makes, and you can test those predictions. Um, I think the correct account of that, the criteria of scientific explanation, is that a scientific or any other um, theory um, about the world, then that if it's true, uh, its consequences are probably true. If it's false, its consequences are no, sorry, I expressed that badly. If it's true, it is probable that you would observe certain things, which you do observe. If it's false, it's not probable that you would observe the things that you do observe. And thirdly, it is simple. Now, it doesn't seem to matter to me whether the things you observe, which might make it true or false, are observed before you formulated the theory or after you formulated the theory. It seems absurd to suppose that there's this piece of evidence which has a certain relation to the theory, but whether it makes the theory more probable or not depends on when I thought about it. That can hardly affect the logical relation between the evidence and the theory. And in fact, um, the history of science bears that out. Newton's theory of gravitation, the most successful theory in the history of science, was formulated by Newton in the 1660s, but published by him in 1687. Um, um, it seems to make there were no new predictions which it made until 60 years later. But that didn't affect people seeing it was true. And why they saw it was true is because he um, explained how a lot of things which they knew and observed about and thought were sort of independent things, how were they connected to each other, all followed from his theory. They followed from his theory why you would get the tides that you do, why you would get the velocities of bodies moving down slopes that you do, why you would get the moon to go around the Earth in exactly the way it did, why you get the Earth to go around the Sun exactly the way it did, why you'll get the planets of Jupiter and Saturn to go. All of that was known beforehand. But Newton's great achievement and why everybody came to believe it true is not because he'd made a new, done a new experiment to show something, but because he had produced a theory that explained everything you got already. And that's why I think it's not a good objection to theism, saying you can't. It doesn't make predictions. You've got the evidence already. It's there. The point is to assess what it shows. And a rather one example of this point is the average detective story, in which it's only in the last chapter that the detective reveals who did the crime. But in fact, you've been given all the clues in the earlier chapters. So everyone knew the clues, but the detectives saw how they fitted together, and that was the point.
I love that. That's fantastic. If you enjoyed this clip, then head on over to Locals to access the full conversation right now. Supporters can access the video version, and everyone can access the audio-only version of the conversation. I'll see you over there.